They say a mother's love is unconditional, that no matter what your child does, you'll always find a way to forgive them. Well, let me tell you something. I'm Catherine Collins, and I spent 730 days in a Texas jail cell because my own son put me there. 2 years of my life, stolen by a lie. And before I tell you how I clawed my way back from hell, I need you to understand how I got there in the first place. So please, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching this from. I want to know who's listening to a 65-year-old woman's story about betrayal, revenge, and the daughter who saved me when I'd lost everything. The concrete wall was damp, cold against my fingertips. I traced another vertical line with my thumbnail, the same thumbnail that used to be manicured every Tuesday at Bella's Salon on McKinney Avenue. Line number 729. Tomorrow would be day 730. Tomorrow, I would walk out of this hellhole. I sat cross-legged on the thin mattress that had been my bed for 2 years. The springs dug into my hips, a constant reminder that I was 65 years old and sleeping on a cot instead of the king-sized bed in my Highland Park mansion. The air conditioning rattled and wheezed, barely cutting through the September Texas heat that made the cell feel like a convection oven. Before this, I was Catherine Collins, co-founder of Collins Industries with my late husband Jack. We built that company from nothing, turned it into an $85 million green energy empire. I had a home overlooking Turtle Creek, a closet full of St. John suits, and a calendar packed with charity galas and board meetings. Now, I was inmate C-4739. My wardrobe consisted of 3 gray jumpsuits that smelled like industrial detergent and defeat. The memories crashed over me like they did every night. The courtroom. Judge Harrison's cold eyes, eyes that I now know were paid to be cold. And there, on the witness stand in his perfectly pressed navy suit, was my son, my Maxwell, 42 years old, handsome in that way that made investors trust him, tears streaming down his face like he actually had a heart left to break. "I love my mother, Your Honor," Maxwell had said, his voice trembling with manufactured grief. "But I cannot. I will not defend what she did. She pushed Maria down those stairs. She killed my unborn child. Then came Maria, my daughter-in-law, sitting in that wheelchair like she was auditioning for a soap opera, clutching her flat stomach, tears rolling down her perfectly made-up face. Mother Collins screamed at me," she sobbed into the microphone. "She said I'd never control her company. Then she pushed me. I felt my baby dying inside me." Every word was a lie. Every single word. I had gone to Maxwell's office that day, September 20th, 2023, to confront him about $2.1 million missing from our company accounts. I had the bank statements, the shell companies, the fake invoices. I had proof that my own son was embezzling from the company his father and I built with our bare hands. But I never touched Maria. I never got within 5 feet of her. She threw herself down those stairs. I saw her do it. She looked right at me, smiled this cold little smile, and then she just jumped. 12 carpeted steps. She knew exactly how to fall to look dramatic without actually killing herself. The security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned during those crucial 5 minutes. All that remained was footage of me at the top of the staircase, my face twisted with fury as I'd been yelling at Maxwell about the embezzlement. To a jury, it looked like rage directed at a pregnant woman. Perfect frame, perfect crime. 2 years. When that gavel struck, my entire world collapsed. I watched Maxwell embrace Maria, and in that split second before the cameras flashed, I caught a look pass between them. Not guilt, not grief. Cold, calculated satisfaction. The look of 2 people who just eliminated the only obstacle to an $85 million inheritance. I tried to fight. God, I tried. But Maxwell moved fast, filed an emergency petition declaring me mentally unstable, froze all my personal accounts. Without access to my money, I couldn't hire Benjamin Hayes or any of the top criminal attorneys in Dallas. I was stuck with Sarah Kim, an overworked public defender fresh out of law school who took one look at the evidence and advised me to plead guilty. "The jury will convict you anyway, Mrs. Collins," she'd said, barely looking up from her case file. "Judge Harrison has a 95% conviction rate. Take the plea deal, 3 years instead of 7. I refused. I went to trial, and I lost. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. 4 hours to destroy a lifetime of building, loving, sacrificing. When the foreman read guilty on all counts, I didn't cry. I just stared at Maxwell. He couldn't hold my gaze. He looked down at his $800 Italian shoes, the ones I'd bought him for his birthday. "Catherine, you daydreaming again?" A raspy voice cut through my memories. David Parker, my cellmate, 67 years old, former accountant serving 8 years for embezzlement. Ironic, isn't it? I was innocent of the crime I was convicted of, but my cellmate actually did steal money. Yet somehow, David was the most honest person I'd met in 2 years. "Just counting, David," I replied quietly, my eyes still on those 729 marks on the wall. "Tomorrow you walk free," David said, folding his gray uniform with the precision of a man who'd found routine in chaos. "If I were you, I'd be praising the Lord, doing a happy dance, something. But you're too calm, Catherine, like someone heading to the grocery store, not walking out of hell." I allowed myself a small smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Because the real hell isn't here, David. The real hell is out there, waiting for me." David raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He'd learned over the past 2 years that I only talked when I was ready. I stood, my knees protesting, another reminder that I was 65, not 25, and walked to the cracked mirror above the stainless steel sink. The woman staring back was different from the one who'd entered this place. My hair, once a carefully maintained chestnut brown, was now streaked with silver. I'd stopped dyeing it after the first year. What was the point? My face had hardened, new lines carved around my mouth and eyes. I'd lost 20 pounds, not from the terrible food, but from the rage that burned inside me like a slow-cooking fire. I thought of Jack, my husband of 33 years. He'd died 7 years ago from pancreatic cancer, gone before he could see what our son had become. Maybe that was a blessing. Jack had loved Maxwell so much, had such hopes for him taking over Collins Industries someday. "Maxwell and Maria," I whispered to my reflection, tasting the names like poison. "Tomorrow you'll be waiting outside with your reporters and your fake reconciliation. You'll play your roles perfectly." But I had learned something valuable in this cell, something that 2 years of forced patience had taught me. Revenge wasn't about heat and passion. Revenge was ice-cold calculation. It was knowing exactly when to strike and how hard. I'd frozen my revenge for 730 days. Tomorrow, when that cell door opened, hell would follow me out. The sound of expensive heels clicking down the jail corridor made my stomach clench. I knew those footsteps. I'd heard them my entire adult life, from the time she took her first steps in my living room to the day she walked across the stage at SMU to get her business degree. "Collins visitor," Officer Linda Martinez said, her kind eyes sympathetic. She was one of the few guards who treated us like human beings. "Your daughter says it's urgent." My heart hammered against my ribs. Caroline, my baby girl. She was 38 now. A woman, not a baby. But she'd always be my Caroline. This was her first visit in 7 months. The last time I'd seen her was 2 weeks after my conviction, and she'd sat on the other side of that plexiglass barrier looking broken, lost. I told her not to come back, told her to live her life, to stay away from this nightmare. But here she was. The visitation room was divided by thick plexiglass. I sat down, and through the scratched plastic I saw her. Caroline looked different. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a black Armani suit that screamed corporate power. But it was her face that shocked me, completely emotionless, flat, cold. She picked up the phone. I hesitated before lifting mine. "Mother," she said. "Not Mom, not Mama. Just Mother." "Caroline, sweetheart, why are you here? I told you, I need you to sign these papers." She slid a folder under the small opening in the plexiglass barrier. My hands shook as I opened it. Power of attorney transfer. Maxwell needed it for some Singapore deal worth $5 million. "You're helping him?" The words came out as a whisper. Caroline leaned close to the glass, and for just a second, maybe half a second, something flickered in her eyes. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Trust me, Mom. Please." Then she sat back, her face returning to that cold mask. "Well," she said loudly enough for the guard to hear. "Are you going to sign or not?" I stared at her, really looked at her. That's when I noticed it. Her wedding ring. A new one. Platinum with a small diamond. She'd been wearing our family heirloom ring last time I saw her, the one Jack's mother had given her. Something in my gut told me to play along. I'll think about it," I said carefully. "Fine." Caroline stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Rot here then, see if I care." Her voice was harsh, cruel even, but her hand trembled as she gathered her purse. A business card fell out, fluttering to the floor on my side of the glass. The guard bent to pick it up and handed it to me. Dominic Griffin, corporate law, specialization, fraud, and embezzlement. I looked up, but Caroline was already walking away, her heels clicking with military precision. She never looked back. That night, I hid the business card inside my mattress and stared at the ceiling, mind racing. Caroline was married? To a lawyer who specialized in fraud? And she'd asked me to trust her? For the first time in 8 months, I felt something other than rage and despair. I felt hope. The first letter arrived in a plain white envelope with no return address. Officer Martinez handed it to me during mail call with a curious look. Inside was a newspaper clipping. Maxwell Collins named CEO of Collins Industries. And beneath it, in handwriting I'd recognize anywhere, Caroline's neat, careful script, was a single letter. C. The next month, another envelope. This time, a stock report showing Collins Industries' profits down 18%. Again, signed with just C. Month after month, the letters came. Each one a piece of a puzzle I didn't fully understand yet. Month 14. Photo of Maria at a charity gala, walking in heels. No wheelchair in sight. The caption, "Maria Collins recovers miraculously from tragic accident." Month 18. Bank statements showing suspicious wire transfers to offshore accounts. Month 22. A blurry photo of Maxwell meeting with someone in a dark restaurant. The man's face was partially visible. Judge Harrison. Month 24. A torn piece of paper with just 3 words. September 18th, 2025. Ready? My release date. Caroline was feeding me information, building a case, keeping me connected to a world I'd been torn from. But more than that, she was telling me she hadn't abandoned me, that she was fighting. I just didn't know how big the fight would become. David Parker got out on a Tuesday. 8 years he'd served, and suddenly he was free. The morning before his release, he sat on his bunk and wrote something on a piece of paper, then handed it to me. "Mrs. Collins," he said quietly, "when you get out, call this number. Tell them I sent you." What kind of people am I calling, David? His weathered face broke into a sad smile. The kind who believe in justice when the courts fail. The kind who know that money and power don't always win. He paused. "I made mistakes in my life, Catherine. Stole money from people who trusted me. But watching what they did to you, an innocent woman, that changed something in me. Made me want to help for once instead of taking." 3 days later, I received another envelope. Thicker this time. When I opened it in my cell, I nearly dropped it. A burner phone. Small, cheap, taped to a piece of paper. The note read, "Use this. Only call the number saved as DG. He's on our side. Destroy this note after reading. C. DG, Dominic Griffin." That night during yard time, I pretended to tie my shoe near the bathroom area, the one blind spot from the security cameras. My hands shook as I powered on the phone and dialed. It rang once, twice. "Mrs. Collins," a man's voice, deep and calm. "I'm Dominic Griffin. I'm your daughter's husband." Husband? Caroline was married. "When?" I whispered. 2 years ago. Small ceremony. She didn't tell Maxwell because we needed him to trust her, to believe she'd abandoned you. My throat tightened. Why are you helping me? Because my father-in-law, Jack Collins, would have wanted me to. Because Caroline loves you more than life itself. And because Mrs. Collins, he paused. Because I know you're innocent. And I'm going to prove it. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face for the first time in months. Tell me everything, I whispered. And he did. Over the next 3 months, in whispered phone calls from that bathroom blind spot, Dominic told me about the evidence he'd been collecting, about the doctor who'd treated Maria, about the IT technician who deleted the security footage, about shell companies and bribery and a conspiracy so deep it made my head spin. But the biggest revelation came in our final call, 48 hours before my release. Mrs. Collins, there's something you need to know about Judge Harrison, Dominic said, his voice tight. Something about why I'm really doing this. What is it? He's my father. The world tilted. Helping you means destroying my father's career, probably sending him to prison. But he took bribes, Catherine. Not just from Maxwell, from 8 other people over 20 years. He's destroyed innocent lives for money. And his voice cracked. I can't let him destroy one more. I sat in my cell that night, the burner phone hidden under my mattress, and stared at those 729 marks on my wall. Tomorrow I would add the final mark. Tomorrow I would walk out of this place. And tomorrow Maxwell and Maria would learn what it felt like to have everything stolen by the people they trusted most. David Parker had sent me a book 2 weeks ago, The Count of Monte Cristo. Inside the front cover he'd written, Patience, Mrs. Collins. Tomorrow you become Edmond Dantes. I traced mark number 729 with my finger and whispered into the darkness. Maxwell Maria, your reckoning begins tomorrow. The cell was silent except for the sound of my own breathing and the distant clang of a cell door closing somewhere down the corridor. Tomorrow my cage would open, and hell would walk out with me. The Texas sun rose like liquid gold, pouring through the iron gates of Dallas County Jail. I took my first step into freedom, and the heat hit me immediately. Thick, humid September air that smelled like gasoline, fresh-cut grass, and possibility. After 730 days of recycled air conditioning and concrete, even the Dallas smog tasted like champagne. Officer Martinez walked me to the gate, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. Mrs. Collins, she said quietly. Give them hell. I smiled at her. Oh, I intend to. The crowd was already gathering. I could see them through the chain-link fence, at least 30 reporters with cameras and microphones, news vans from every major Dallas station, and there, positioned center stage like actors in a carefully rehearsed play, stood Maxwell and Maria. My son wore a navy blue Brioni suit that probably cost $3,000. His face was arranged into an expression of careful remorse, practiced in front of a mirror, no doubt. Beside him, Maria clutched a bouquet of white roses, wearing a cream-colored Chanel dress. She looked thin, fragile, like a strong wind might blow her away. Props, all of it. Props for the cameras. The gate buzzed and swung open. I stepped through. Mom! Maxwell's voice carried across the parking lot, loud enough for every microphone to catch. Welcome home. We're here for you. We're family. I didn't break stride. I walked forward, my wrinkled white blouse and faded jeans hanging loose on my frame. These were the clothes I'd worn the day I was arrested, the only civilian clothes I had left. Each step felt deliberate, powerful. I wasn't the broken woman who'd entered that jail. I was something else now, something harder. Maxwell stepped forward, extending the roses toward me. Mom, please, let's go home. We can talk, work everything out. Put this nightmare behind us. I walked past him, not around him, past him, like he was a piece of sidewalk furniture I didn't even register. Mom! His voice sharpened, the fake warmth cracking at the edges. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. His fingers dug into my bicep, not hard enough to bruise, but firm enough to stop me. Don't make a scene. Get in the car. Now. I stopped. slowly turned my head, looked at his hand gripping my arm, then met his eyes. Every camera was watching, recording, broadcasting live. I could see the red lights blinking on at least a dozen devices. "Let go of me," I said quietly, each word measured and clear. "Or I will scream that you're assaulting me in front of all these cameras and these witnesses." Maxwell's hand dropped like he'd touched a hot stove. I resumed walking. Behind me, I heard Maria's voice rise, the careful facade cracking. "He's completely insane. 2 years destroyed his mind. Someone needs to—" The deep rumble of a powerful engine cut her off. Every head turned. A black Mercedes S-Class glided into the parking lot like a panther, chrome gleaming in the morning sun, windows tinted dark enough to hide secrets. The license plate read, Griffin 1. The reporters surged forward, cameras swinging away from Maxwell and Maria toward this new development. I kept walking, steady and sure, as the Mercedes pulled up beside me. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, early 40s, athletic build, wearing a charcoal Tom Ford 3-piece suit that screamed money and power. His dark hair was precisely cut, intelligent eyes behind rimless glasses. He moved with quiet confidence, the kind that came from winning cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. I heard someone in the crowd gasp. "That's Dominic Griffin," another voice. "The Dominic Griffin? The lawyer who won the Patterson case?" Maxwell's voice, confused and angry. "Who the hell is that? How does she have money for him?" Dominic walked directly to me, ignoring the chaos, ignoring the cameras, ignoring everything except his client, his mother-in-law, his family. "Mrs. Collins," he said, his voice clear and respectful. "Everything is ready, ma'am." I shook his hand once, firmly. Our eyes met, and I saw determination there. Loyalty, justice. He opened the rear door with a professional bow, like I was royalty. And in that moment, walking out of hell into freedom, I felt like it. But I paused, turned back to Maxwell and Maria. They stood frozen, those white roses wilting in Maria's hands, their mouths slightly open. Their carefully planned reconciliation scene was collapsing in real time. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just looked at them. Let them see that something fundamental had changed, that the woman who'd entered that prison wasn't the woman leaving it. Then I slid into the Mercedes. The leather seat embraced me like a hug. The interior smelled of new car leather, polished wood, and power. Real power. Not the fake kind Maxwell wielded with his stolen CEO title, but the kind that came from having the truth on your side. The door closed with a solid thunk, like a vault locking. Outside, chaos erupted. I could see it all through the tinted windows. "Mr. Collins! Mr. Collins!" Reporters swarmed Maxwell. "Who hired your mother? Where did she get the money for Dominic Griffin? Is the reconciliation canceled? Will you be commenting on her legal team?" Maxwell's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Confusion, pale shock, burning red fury. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Maria grabbed his arm, her composure shattering. "You said she had nothing left. You said we controlled everything." Through the tinted glass, I watched realization dawn on Maxwell's face. He'd miscalculated, underestimated. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. Dominic slid into the driver's seat, pressed the start button. The engine purred like a satisfied cat. "Where to, Mrs. Collins?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. I leaned back, closing my eyes, taking my first truly free breath in 730 days. Outside, Maxwell was shouting. Reporters were chasing. Maria was crying real tears now. Tears of panic, not performance. I smiled, cold as a January morning. "The Ritz-Carlton," I said quietly. "I need to wash their touch off me. And then Dominic. Then we begin the war." The penthouse suite occupied the entire 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Dallas stretching to the horizon. The skyline I'd helped build with Jack's company. The city that had watched me fall and would now watch me rise. I stood at those windows for a long moment, just breathing. free air, clean air. Then I walked to the bathroom. Marble everywhere, gold fixtures, a shower with 6 heads that probably cost more than most people's cars. I turned the water to scalding hot, stripped off those prison clothes, those cursed gray garments that smelled like industrial soap and defeat, and stepped under the spray. The water hit like baptism. I scrubbed with the hotel's cedar and bergamot soap, nothing like the harsh carbolic acid bars from jail, scrubbed until my skin turned red. 2 years of that place. 2 years of their betrayal. 2 years of being treated like a criminal when I'd done nothing wrong. The tears came then, hot as the water, silent and shaking. I braced against the marble wall and let them fall. Not tears of weakness, tears of rage, tears of grief for the woman who'd trusted her son, who'd believed family meant something. That woman was dead. When I emerged 20 minutes later in a plush white robe, Dominic was waiting in the living area. But he wasn't alone. A woman sat in one of the leather chairs, past 60, silver hair cut short in a no-nonsense style, sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She wore a charcoal pantsuit and a simple watch. Everything about her screamed competence and contained fury. "Mrs. Collins," Dominic stood. "This is Beatrice Walsh. She was the best defense attorney in Texas before they imprisoned her." I looked at the woman sharply. "Imprisoned?" Beatrice smiled without warmth. 5 years for refusing to betray my client. They called it contempt of court. I called it having a spine. She stood extending her hand. "I got out 6 months ago. Dominic was my student before I went in. He told me about your case." Her handshake was firm, strong. "And you want to help?" I asked. "I want to destroy corrupt bastards," Beatrice corrected. "Your son qualifies." A sound from the bedroom made me turn. The door opened and my heart stopped. Caroline. She stood in the doorway wearing a black Armani suit, her hair down for the first time in over a year, not pulled back in that severe bun she'd worn to project cold indifference. Her face was naked of the mask she'd worn in prison, in Maxwell's presence, in public. She looked like my daughter again. "Mom," she whispered. That one word broke something in both of us. We moved at the same time, colliding in the middle of the room. I wrapped my arms around her and felt her shake with sobs. 2 years of pretending, of sacrifice, of fear, all releasing at once. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I had to make him believe I'd abandoned you. I had to—" "Shh." I stroked her hair like I used to when she was little and had nightmares. "I know, baby. I know." "Every board meeting," Caroline sobbed into my shoulder. "Every time he asked my opinion and I sided with him. Every time he celebrated while you were in that place. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him I knew what he'd done. But I couldn't. I had to wait. I had to gather enough evidence. You saved me," I said firmly, pulling back to look at her face. "Caroline, you gave up everything. Your relationship with your brother, normal visits with your mother. You even got married in secret." Caroline wiped her eyes, a watery smile breaking through. "Mom, meet my husband. Properly this time." Dominic walked over, suddenly looking nervous in a way he hadn't when facing reporters. "Mrs. Collins, I'm sorry we met this way. I wanted to ask your blessing to marry Caroline properly. Instead, we eloped in a courthouse to keep the plan secret." I looked at this man, this stranger who'd sacrificed his own father to save my family. "You gave up everything for us." "My father gave up justice for money," Dominic said quietly. "I chose differently." I pulled him into a hug. "Then welcome to the family, son. The real family." When we finally settled around the coffee table, the war room revealed itself. Documents covered every surface. Beatrice's laptop displayed spreadsheets, bank records, emails. A whiteboard leaned against the wall with a timeline, names, connections drawn in different colored markers. "All right," I said, settling into a chair. "Show me everything." Dominic pulled out the first document. "Power of attorney. Maxwell declared you mentally incompetent to manage your affairs. We're revoking it effective immediately. Your signature reactivates your 55% shareholder status in Collins Industries. I signed without hesitation, the pen feeling powerful in my hand. Next, Beatrice continued, emergency forensic audit. This freezes all company accounts until the audit is complete. Maxwell can't move money, can't make major purchases, can't do anything without board approval. How long will it take? I asked. Minimum 30 days, Dominic said. Longer if we find irregularities, which we will, because they're extensive. Do it. Beatrice leaned forward, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Your daughter sent this to Dominic 6 months ago. No return address. Just signed C. I recognized Caroline's handwriting on the label. My chest tightened. Inside was a flash drive and a note on plain paper. 2 years of work. Everything you need. Trust Dominic. Your ally is very thorough. Caroline smiled sadly from across the table. I had access to everything as CFO. Every transaction, every email Maxwell thought he'd deleted, every shady deal. I copied it all. Dominic plugged the flash drive into his laptop. The screen filled with spreadsheets, bank records, emails, shell companies. Evidence of money laundering, bribes to Judge Harrison, payments to Ryan Peters, the IT technician Maxwell paid to corrupt the security footage. My God, I breathed. This is everything. Not quite, Caroline said softly. She pulled out another folder. This is everything. Inside were photographs. Maxwell meeting Judge Harrison at a dark restaurant. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. And the most damning, security footage. The real security footage. Where did you get this? I whispered. Ryan Peters kept a backup, Dominic explained. Insurance policy in case Maxwell ever tried to throw him under the bus. I paid him $100,000 for it. He pressed play. The video was crystal clear. The timestamp read September 20th, 2023, 2:47 p. I watched myself at the top of the stairs, yelling at Maxwell about the embezzlement. Then Maria appeared, walking toward me. She stopped at the top of the stairs, turned to look directly at the camera, and smiled. Then she threw herself down. She didn't fall. She didn't trip. She deliberately, calculatingly jumped, tucking her body to minimize injury, landing on her side on the carpeted stairs. And Maxwell, my son, just stood there, watching, waiting, not even trying to catch her. He knew, I said numbly. He knew she was going to do it. They planned it together, Beatrice confirmed. The evidence suggests they'd been planning it for at least 2 months, ever since you started asking questions about the missing money. I looked at Caroline. How did you figure it out? I didn't. Not at first. Caroline's voice was thick with emotion. I believed Maxwell initially. I thought maybe you'd had a breakdown, that the stress of Dad's death and running the company had finally caught up with you. But then... She paused. Then I visited you in jail, and you were so calm, so rational. You weren't angry at me for not believing you immediately. You just looked at me with these sad eyes and said, Caroline, I raised you to think critically, so think. And you did, I said softly. I started digging, found the shell companies within a week, the deleted emails within 2 weeks. By month 3, I knew Maxwell had framed you. By month 6, I'd married Dominic and we'd started building the case. By month 12, we had enough evidence to not just free you, but to destroy him. Beatrice tapped the table. Mrs. Collins, we need to move fast. Strike while Maxwell is off balance from this morning's surprise. What's the strategy? 3 phases, Dominic said, pulling up a presentation on his laptop. Phase 1, the freeze. Tomorrow we executed the emergency board meeting. Freeze all accounts. Remove Maxwell's access to corporate funds. Let him feel what having nothing means. Phase 2, the exposure. We leak the medical evidence about Maria's miscarriage. Let public opinion turn against them before we even file charges. And Phase 3? I asked. Beatrice smiled like a shark. Legal annihilation. Criminal charges for embezzlement, perjury, bribery. Civil suit for wrongful imprisonment. We're asking for $50 million in damages. And we remove Maxwell as CEO and install Caroline in his place. I looked at my daughter. Are you ready for that? Caroline's jaw set with determination. I've been ready for 2 years. The building rose 40 stories into the Dallas skyline, all glass and steel and ambition. I stood across the street, coffee in hand, just looking at it. Jack and I had broken ground on this building in 1998. I remembered his hand in mine as we watched the first steel beam rise into place. We're going to change the world, Kathy, he'd said. And we had. Collins Industries had revolutionized green energy solutions, created thousands of jobs, and funded schools and hospitals across Texas. Now my son had nearly destroyed it all for greed. My phone buzzed. Text from Dominic. Board members are arriving. All 8 confirmed attendance. Ready? I texted back. Born ready. At 8:45 a.m., I walked through those glass doors for the first time in over 2 years. The lobby fell silent. Employees stopped mid-stride, coffee cups frozen halfway to lips. Some smiled, the ones who remembered me, who'd stayed loyal. Others avoided eye contact. Maxwell's cronies, the ones who'd benefited from my absence. I walked to the private elevator, inserted my key card, the one Caroline had secretly maintained, and rode up to the 40th floor. The boardroom doors were already open. 8 board members sat around the marble conference table, and there, at what he thought was the head of the table, sat Maxwell. He looked up, and I watched the color drain from his face. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, standing abruptly. "This is a board meeting. You're not—" "I'm majority shareholder," I said calmly, walking to the true head of the table, my chair. "And I called this meeting." Maxwell's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "That's impossible. Your power of attorney—" "Revoked," Beatrice Walsh said, walking in behind me. "Yesterday at 3 p.m. Signed, notarized, and filed with the Texas Secretary of State." Maxwell's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies. He found none. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, sitting down in my chair like a queen reclaiming her throne. "Let's begin." The silence in that boardroom was deafening. 8 board members stared at me like I was a ghost, which I supposed I was. The ghost of their founder, risen from the grave of Dallas County Jail to reclaim what was mine. Maxwell remained standing, his knuckles white as he gripped the back of his chair. "This is insane. I'm the CEO. I didn't authorize this meeting. You can't just—" "Sit down, Maxwell," I said quietly. Something in my voice made him obey. He sank into his chair, but his eyes blazed with fury and, if I wasn't mistaken, fear. I looked around the table at faces I'd known for decades. Richard Garrett, who'd been on our board since 1995. Patricia Chen, our finance expert. Thomas Wade, Joseph Kim, Sandra Martinez, David Robinson, Helen Foster, and Michael Torres. Good people, loyal people, people who'd built this company alongside Jack and me. "I'm sure you all have questions," I began, folding my hands on the table. "Let me answer them. Yes, I was released yesterday. Yes, I have legal representation, the best in Texas. And yes, I am resuming my position as majority shareholder and chairman of this board." "Mother, you can't," Maxwell started. "I can," I interrupted, my voice sharp as a blade. "I hold 55% of voting shares in this company. Those shares were placed in an irrevocable trust when Jack and I founded Collins Industries. Maxwell attempted to freeze them under the power of attorney, claiming I was mentally incompetent." I smiled without warmth. "That power of attorney has been revoked. The trust has been reactivated. I am, legally and rightfully, still the majority owner of this company." Patricia Chen leaned forward. "Catherine, we're glad you're back, but you need to know why I was gone in the first place," I finished for her. I nodded to Dominic, who was standing by the door. He pressed a button on his laptop. The large screen on the wall came to life, showing a graph with a plummeting red line. "During Maxwell Collins's tenure as CEO," I began, "net profits fell 40%. Debt increased 200%. But those numbers, while alarming, aren't criminal. I paused. What is criminal is this. Dominic clicked to the next slide. Bank transfers appeared, money flowing through cracks like water through a broken dam. $2.1 million transferred to shell companies, I continued. LuxCore Consulting LLC, Meridian Advisory Group, Sterling Solutions International, all fake companies, all owned by my son. Maxwell shot to his feet. That's a lie. Those are legitimate business expenses. Sit down and shut up. Beatrice Walsh's voice cut through the room like a whip. She stood near the window, arms crossed. Or I'll have security remove you. Maxwell looked around the table for support. Found none. He sat. Richard Garrett cleared his throat. Catherine, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof? Mr. Garrett? Caroline's voice came from the doorway. Every head turned. She walked in wearing a navy pantsuit, carrying a leather portfolio. Her heels clicked with authority as she approached the table. I have 2 years' worth of proof. Maxwell's face went pale. Caroline, what are you? I'm the CFO, Maxwell. Or did you forget? Caroline set the portfolio on the table with a heavy thunk. Every transaction goes through my department. Every invoice, every wire transfer, every expense report. She opened the portfolio, pulling out document after document. Here's the transfer to LuxCore Consulting for $1.5 million, supposedly for interior design consultation. She slid a paper across to Richard Garrett. Here's the incorporation paperwork for LuxCore Consulting. Owner, Maria Collins. Incorporated 3 days after Mother's conviction. Gasps rippled around the table. That doesn't prove anything, Maxwell said desperately. Maria is a designer. She was helping with the Singapore office. We don't have a Singapore office, Caroline said coldly. We never did. That was another lie. She pulled out more papers. Here's Meridian Advisory Group. Owner, Maxwell Collins. Here's Sterling Solutions International. Owner, a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, which is owned by another shell corporation in Delaware, which is ultimately owned by... She paused dramatically. Maxwell Collins. You've been stealing from this company for 3 years, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. And when I discovered it, when I came to your office to confront you about it, you and Maria hatched a plan to frame me, to get me out of the way permanently. That's insane. Maxwell slammed his hand on the table. Maria fell. Mother pushed her. Everyone saw corrupted security footage, Dominic interrupted. He clicked to another slide. Footage that was deleted by Ryan Peters, your IT technician, who you paid $50,000 to destroy evidence. A photo appeared on screen. Bank transfer from Maxwell's personal account to Ryan Peters, dated September 20th, 2023, 4:17 p.m., 5 hours after Maria's fall. Ryan kept receipts, Dominic said, including text messages. He clicked again. Maxwell's texts appeared, blown up large enough for everyone to read. Delete everything from 2:45 to 2:52. Make it look like a malfunction. I need those minutes gone. I'll pay double. Perfect. $50K transferred. Keep your mouth shut. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other, some standing, others leaning in to read the messages closer. Enough! Maxwell roared. You're all idiots if you believe this. My father built this company. I have a right. Your father built this company with my mother, Caroline said, her voice like ice. Jack Collins and Catherine Collins, equal partners. And Mom is still here. You tried to destroy her. You failed. I stood slowly, commanding the room's attention. I moved to freeze all corporate accounts pending a full SEC audit. All executive accounts, all corporate credit cards, all discretionary spending frozen until this matter is resolved. I second the motion, Caroline said immediately. You can't do that. Maxwell's voice cracked. We have payroll in 3 days. Vendor payments, the Austin project, payroll account remains open, Beatrice clarified. This freeze applies only to executive discretionary accounts. You know, the accounts you've been using to steal from this company? Richard Garrett looked at me with sad eyes. Catherine, I'm sorry. We should have looked deeper. We should have questioned. You trusted my son, I said gently, as you should have been able to. The blame lies with him, not you. I looked around the table. All in favor of the emergency freeze? Hands rose around the table, one by one. Richard Garrett, Patricia Chen, Thomas Wade, Joseph Kim, Sandra Martinez, David Robinson, Helen Foster. 7 hands, 7 votes. Only Maxwell and Michael Torres, Maxwell's college roommate and longtime supporter, voted no. Motion passes, I said, 7-2. Maxwell stood so abruptly his chair fell backward with a crash. This is a coup. You're all making a mistake. I'm the CEO of this company. You were the CEO, Caroline said quietly. Appointed under power of attorney that no longer exists. Legally, Mother never stopped being chairman. You were just managing things. Badly. Security, I said calmly. The boardroom doors opened. 2 security guards stepped in. Samuel Rodriguez, head of building security for 15 years, and James Peterson, his second in command. No, Maxwell whispered, backing away. No, you can't do this. Mr. Collins, Samuel said gently, we need you to come with us. I'm calling my lawyer. Maxwell pulled out his phone. He stopped, staring at the screen. My card. My corporate card. It's already declined? It works fast, Dominic said with a slight smile. All corporate accounts were flagged the moment the vote passed. Maxwell looked around the room wildly, at the board members who wouldn't meet his eyes, at Caroline who stood with her arms crossed, at Beatrice who watched him like a predator, at Dominic who held all his secrets. Finally, his eyes landed on me. Mom, he whispered. Please, I'm your son. For a moment, just one moment, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who'd run to me with skinned knees, the one who'd cried at his father's funeral and asked me if he was the man of the house now. Then I remembered 730 days in a cell. I remembered the cold plexiglass between us during visitation. I remembered him testifying against me, tears streaming down his lying face. You stopped being my son the day you put me in that cell, I said quietly. Samuel's hand closed on Maxwell's arm. This way, sir. As they led him to the door, Maxwell turned back one more time. This isn't over. You think you've won, but you haven't. I have resources. I have Maria. You have nothing, Caroline said. Your accounts are frozen. Your apartment was rented using company funds, also frozen. Your car, your clothes, your lifestyle, all purchased with stolen money. You have exactly what you left our mother with. Nothing. The doors closed behind him with a final, decisive click. I didn't witness what happened next, but Caroline told me about it later, and it was almost too perfect to believe. Maxwell had a dinner meeting scheduled that night with Richard and Patricia Sterling, not related to our board members, owners of Sterling Construction. He needed their $15 million investment for a project that didn't actually exist. The meeting had been scheduled weeks ago, back when he thought he controlled everything. He and Maria showed up dressed to the nines. Maxwell in a Tom Ford suit he'd bought 2 weeks ago with his corporate card. Maria in a burgundy Valentino dress, playing the part of Dallas power couple. They ordered the most expensive wine, the 300 steaks, appetizers, desserts, a $850 dinner designed to impress. When the waiter brought the bill, Maxwell handed over his corporate black card with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no. The waiter swiped. Beep, declined. Maxwell frowned. That's odd. Try again. Second swipe, beep, declined. The Sterlings exchanged glances. Must be a system glitch, Maxwell laughed, but his voice was tight. Maria, use yours. Maria fumbled with her supplementary card. Same account. Beep, declined. The silence at that table must have been crushing. I'll call finance, Maxwell stammered, standing abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor, drawing attention from nearby tables. "Excuse me one moment." He walked toward the entrance, phone pressed to his ear. Robert Jensen, our CFO, answered on the third ring. "Robert, why aren't the cards working?" "Mr. Collins." Robert's voice was ice. "I've been trying to reach you. All corporate accounts were frozen this morning. SEC order at 9:15 a.m. Emergency forensic audit." "On whose authority?" "Your mother's. Mrs. Catherine Collins reactivated her majority shareholder status. The board sided with her. 7-2 vote." Maxwell's world must have tilted on its axis right then. "But I'm the CEO. Your appointment was based on power of attorney," Robert explained quietly, "which she revoked. Legally, she never stopped being chairman. You were just acting in her stead, and now she's back. The Singapore deal, the Austin project, all frozen. Nothing moves until the audit clears. And Maxwell?" Robert paused. "You might want to turn on the TV." Maxwell spun toward the bar's flat screen. CNN was on, and there I was, standing at a podium outside Collins Industries headquarters, Dominic and Beatrice flanking me. The chyron read, "Catherine Collins announces return to leadership. I, Catherine Collins, as rightful owner and chairman of Collins Industries," my voice rang clear from the speakers, "announce complete management restructuring effective immediately. While I was wrongfully imprisoned, massive financial irregularities occurred. Funds were diverted. Projects were mismanaged. Trust was violated." The camera zoomed in on my face. "Legal action will be taken against all responsible parties. This company will be cleaned from top to bottom, starting today." The TV cut to a reporter. "In a stunning turn of events, Catherine Collins has returned to power less than 24 hours after her release from Dallas County Jail, where she served 2 years for assault. Sources say she's alleging embezzlement and fraud at the highest levels of the company." Maxwell stood frozen in Sterling's Steakhouse, every eye on him. Patrons recognized him from the news. Whispers rippled through the restaurant. The Sterlings were already standing, gathering their things. Patricia showed her husband something on her phone, probably the same news coverage. Maria appeared at Maxwell's elbow. "Maxwell, people are staring. What's happening?" "Everything," Maxwell said numbly. "Everything is happening." His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He unlocked it. A single text message. "Enjoy your last supper." See, Caroline had been watching. Caroline had timed it perfectly. They left Sterling's Steakhouse that night without paying. The manager eventually comped the meal just to avoid a scene. Maxwell and Maria drove back to their luxury apartment in Uptown in silence. When they tried to enter their building, the concierge stopped them. "I'm sorry, Mr. Collins. Your apartment lease was paid through your corporate account. That account has been frozen. The building management has seized the unit for non-payment." "That's illegal," Maria shrieked. "You can't just—" "We can and we have, ma'am. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings. You have 30 minutes. I woke up in my suite at the Ritz-Carlton to my phone vibrating like it was possessed. 53 missed calls. 87 text messages. I sat up, my heart racing, and unlocked the screen. Twitter had exploded. The hashtag Catherine Collins was trending #1 nationwide. 2.3 million mentions. But it wasn't my press conference people were talking about. It was the medical records. Someone, I later learned it was Jennifer Walsh, Rebecca Stone's sister and the nurse who'd treated Maria, had leaked Maria's medical file to an anonymous Twitter account called @JusticeForCatherine. The top tweet had 147,000 retweets. Breaking. Medical records show Maria Collins miscarried on September 18, 2023, 2 days before the alleged push. The baby was already dead. Catherine Collins was framed. Justice for Catherine. Attached was a crystal-clear image of the medical record from Mercy General Hospital. Patient, Maria Collins. Date, September 18, 2023, 11:45 p.m. Diagnosis: incomplete spontaneous abortion due to DNP toxicity. Treatment: emergency DNC performed. Notes: patient admitted using illegal diet pills, DNP, purchased online. Advised to report to authorities. Patient became hostile and threatened legal action. The internet went nuclear. Comments flooded in by the thousands. She lied about a dead baby to frame an innocent woman. This woman destroyed a family for money. Lock her up. Catherine Collins spent 2 years in prison for something that never happened. This is evil. Where's the security footage? Show us what really happened. Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, every platform was on fire. Videos analyzing the timeline, lawyers breaking down the legal implications, true crime podcasts scrambling to cover the story. By 7 a.m., news vans were parked outside the Sunset Motel where Maxwell and Maria had spent the night. Their first night with no money, no home, no power. I sat in my hotel room, watching it all unfold on my iPad, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 730 days. Vindication. My phone rang. Caroline. "Mom, have you seen?" "I've seen," I said. "Is this your doing?" "Rebecca's sister Jennifer," Caroline confirmed. "Maria threatened her last year when Jennifer questioned the illegal pills. Jennifer's been waiting for the right moment. I may have suggested that now was that moment." "Caroline, they destroyed you, Mom. They deserve this." She was right. They did. "What's next?" I asked. "Press conference. 10 a.m., Hyatt Regency Ballroom. Dominic's already booked it. We're going public with everything. The medical records, the security footage, the embezzlement, all of it." I looked at myself in the mirror. The silver-haired woman looking back was stronger than the one who'd gone to prison. Harder. Forged in fire and betrayal. "Then let's give them a show they'll never forget," I said.